Right. Welcome to the Relationships Masterclass. I love this topic. I love this topic so much that we actually decided to create an entire retreat around this. So in November of 2022, we are inviting all of our clients to Grandview Lodge, where they're going to take an entire weekend and dedicate it to building relationships. And this has to do with relationships with other people, relationships with themselves, their body, relationship that they have with food. I know we've definitely hooked some of our current clients with the promise of how to evolve and navigate relationships with adult children. That seems to be a hot topic amongst our clients.
And they're hard.
Yeah. I think it has everything to do with the type of client or the demographic of the client that we attract, for sure. We all are kind of in that phase of life. And, kids do not come with manuals, and our life does not come with a manual. So of course that can be tricky when you kind of enter into that new phase where you are trying to understand who your child is as an adult, and you're helping them navigate all of those firsts. So I love the topic of relationships, but today specifically we're going to talk about your relationship with food, and how that has everything to do with your weight. And that might seem like a no-brainer, but I want to give you a new way of thinking about it. So when I talk about relationships, I'm talking about something that exists at the level of your mind. And I want you to really try to kind of envelop that, like really stay with me when I talk about relationships in the context of thoughts. So if you think about a relationship with another person, you might think of somebody who is right now, right in front of you, and immediately feelings are generated. You feel an emotion, an energy running through your body. The only reason why you feel that way is because you're having thoughts about that person. Okay, so let's say the person isn't on earth anymore. Let's say the person has passed. You still have thoughts about that person. And those thoughts are creating an emotion and a vibration that's running through you. Therefore, if the thoughts can be created at any moment, at any time, the relationship still exists at any moment, at any time. So let's say you are in a relationship with another person and you have one feeling about that person, but the person has a different feeling towards you. That makes perfect sense because you both are having different thoughts, which are generating different emotions. So even if somebody isn't standing right in front of you, doesn't exist any longer, you can still have thoughts about them that can still make you feel something. Therefore, the relationship starts at the level of your mind, where most people, when they think about a relationship, they think about it in the context of something outside of them. And my point is that it actually is an internal. It's something that exists inside of you. So you get to control, you get to create that relationship through the thoughts that you're having. So if you have a strained relationship with somebody, that is coming from your thoughts about that person. The same is true when it comes to food. Is there anything about that, Rhonda, that you want to say? Because Rhonda is our advisor at Self-Made You, and she went through the program a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now. You're on mute.
I was going to cough, so I made sure I was off mute. Yeah, I went through the program. We'll be coming on 2 years in August. And I have been on had done every diet program there was, and I probably lost and gained 10,000 pounds in my lifetime. I'm not exaggerating. I'm very good at losing weight, and I'm very good at gaining it back. And so every program was all about the food. It was about your focus on the food, prepared meals or shakes or what I was going to be doing with each of those different programs. But we never, ever got back to the root cause of what I was thinking about the food, why I felt like I had to eat or snack or, just eat and cook and eat. It was just that cycle, lose weight, gain it back, lose weight, but I never got to the root cause.
Yeah. So you might be thinking, I have no relationship with food. I don't consider food something that I have a relationship with. But in reality, if you're having thoughts about food and those thoughts are very consistent, they're looping, you do have a relationship with it because it is creating a result for you. Those thoughts are making you feel something that have you behaving in such a way, in a repetitive nature, that you do have a relationship with food. So at Self-Made You, one of the things that we've just recently done is created a quiz that reveals what your relationship is with food. Rhonda's going to put that in the chat so that you can access that, so you can better understand what your relationship is. And we've boiled it down to 4 different personas. The first is the snacker. This is somebody who is constantly utilizing food as kind of their emotional support. They're somebody that food or even maybe some sort of beverage is constantly, like, I've always got my coffee in hand. It's always a part of every single thing I'm doing. Okay. It is often a way to buffer. If you have a feeling that is unwanted and you don't know how to navigate that feeling, you often turn towards food as a way to solve that feeling. This second persona is the quick fixer. This is somebody who is always looking for that silver bullet. They recognize that they have a problem, and instead of diving deep and getting to the root cause, they are somebody that finds themselves almost always band-aiding the symptoms versus getting to the root cause, which is your thoughts. The romantic. This is somebody that their relationship with food is almost fairy tale-esque. They love to cook. They love to have a glass of wine while they're cooking. It's food is romanticized. It's a beautiful thing. And when it's beautiful, when they think of it that way, there can be nothing wrong. It's like, it's all good. And so you not unlike the snacker, you do see it very much a part of this person's life at any given time. And then the last persona is the overthinker. And this is somebody who's very much in their head. They're constantly rationalizing why they should start the diet tomorrow, or beating themselves up over the fact that they've had failed diet attempts. They're very much in their head, and they haven't actually connected with the feeling that they're experiencing and drawing the conclusion back to the thoughts, but recognizing that that's the starting place. That's actually the root cause. That is the problem that needs to be fixed. That's the area of focus that they've never focused on before. So those are the 4 personas, and each one of them we have created a solution for, and we call it our 4 basics. And because we're super clever and Self-Made You likes to create frameworks for people to learn from, the framework is SELF, S-E-L-F. So the 4 basics to losing weight is solving the mind math, which is yet another framework that I have behind me. It's eating the foods that fuel you, which is the E. The L is learning to collect data so that you make all of your decisions from data instead of drama. And then F is fasting. And we're not asking you to fast super long periods of time. We're asking you to fast so that you can understand how your body reacts to extended periods of time in between your meals. And we know through studying metabolic science that what it does is it bottoms out your insulin levels so that you perform at a higher level. You have more energy. Your cognitive function is at a higher level. You have clearer memory, you have more stabilized moods, and you lose weight. You actually lose body fat because that becomes your energy source versus the things that you're eating.
Yeah, I never thought I could fast. Like when I went through your course, then I was like, fasting, really? And when I think of fasting, I was thinking of, like, going to church, and then we would have these fasting times, and who could ever do it, and how could they do that? But I didn't realize that it had everything to do with my hormones. And wow, was that ever a wake up call for me? It was mind blowing and life changing to see that the things I didn't know about my lab work and all of those things came into clear focus once I started learning about it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think the lab work is kind of an interesting point to kind of pull out because we all, on a semi-regular basis, go to the doctor, we get labs drawn. And instead of looking at those labs and making a data-based decision of what we're going to do next, we look at those labs and we allow very dramatic thoughts to guide our behaviors. So we might have a thought like, oh my God, I'm pre-diabetic, or oh my God, my doctor thinks blank, right? And then you actually find yourself in action. It's very reactive. It's very fast. It's very subconscious, but you are reacting from those dramatic thoughts. And what we teach you to do is to look at the data and make a data-driven decision. And you get entirely different results. And the fact that you have made decisions based on drama before now is not a problem. I would actually, as a life coach, think it is a problem if you weren't doing that, because that means that your primitive brain is working exactly the way that God intended it to work. The primitive part of your brain is meant to keep you alive. It's meant to keep you safe. So therefore, it does create very reactive, fear-based thoughts because it wants to move you out of danger. Okay, but here's the reality. We're not in a lot of danger, but our primitive brain doesn't know that. So it's constantly feeding you fear-based thoughts that we as human beings react from. So my job is to teach you the difference between primitive brain thoughts and prodigy brain thoughts. Now, prodigy brain thoughts are where we use like the prefrontal cortex of our brain to actually make data-driven decisions, not reacting from fear. Two very different thought processes, two very different mindsets, and you get two very different results from that. So those four personas, we very clearly identify the difference between each of those personas, and we very clearly identify what it is that you might be missing, that you need to finally get to your ideal weight and stay there. That's the key. I think that Rhonda and I were talking about this morning. She's like, I think what people most need to know, well, you say it, Rhonda.
Because we have been enveloped in this now for so long, and it kind of becomes habit. But what I didn't know was, just like those four basics of things that I needed to do. And so they're working through the workbook that we went through, highlighted things like from my past that I had no idea. They were just ingrained in my body. There was nothing wrong with them. It was the way my brain worked. But you were able to show that you can change that way of thinking. You practice it. And so by going through that and learning that skill and learning how to basically manage my mind, if you want to call it that, that became the thing that changed it for me 100%. And it's been life changing in so many ways.
Yeah. And so as a life coach, that is my conviction, is that I absolutely know that every result, every experience that we have in our life, it all starts with the thoughts that we're thinking. And most people don't realize that. They think that their experiences are happening to them, that they are not the person that's actually responsible for their results. And this is across the board. This is the relationships in your life. This is your weight. This is any result that you experience in your profession. It is across the board. And when you recognize the control that you actually have, you have this sense of, for lack of a better word, I feel very liberated when I think about the control that I actually have. And through that, I have learned that through that feeling of responsibility, I have learned that there is nothing wrong with me, that it is human nature to be reactive to fear-based thoughts. And when I can give myself the grace of just being human and recognizing what's actually scientifically happening, then I can get to that place where, oh, there's actually nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. But I will say that's the place that I lived for a very, very long time. I thought that my inability to make the kind of money that I wanted was a result of something wrong with me, was a result of me being broken, not being able to perform at the level that I thought I should be. The fact that I was overweight, I felt like that was a result of me being broken from a genetic standpoint, from not being athletic, not being able to exercise enough, not being able to make the right decisions. And none of that is true. But that's the thought that I was operating from that had me in this like cycle of self-loathing that never created any sort of change. It was just this rinse and repeat behavior. So even though I found myself losing weight, I couldn't keep it off, because I would get there and I would be like, okay, I'm finally at my goal weight, and waiting for the happiness to magically appear. But yet I brought along the same sort of thinking that generated the same unhappiness that I was experiencing at 30, 40 pounds heavier. How could that possibly be? And the reason why that was happening was because the circumstance of the weight that I weighed wasn't responsible for making me happy. It was the thoughts that I was having about the weight. That was true at 40 pounds heavier and 40 pounds lighter. It was all about the thoughts that I was having. And so it made perfect sense that I could take control over my thinking and therefore show up in such a way that created intentional results. And when I say intentional, that also was sustainable results. So a lot of our clients at Self-Made You come to us because they so desperately want to find this solution to losing weight. And we know we have a solution for them. The beauty of this is that we also have the solution for every other problem that you experience in your life, because it all comes back to the same thing: how you're thinking about any circumstance, whether it's your weight, whether it's the relationships, whether it's people, whether it's your profession. It's all about how you're thinking. And it isn't the power of positive thinking. That's not it at all. It is how to intentionally come up with something that makes you feel different so that you show up different. And if you notice that you're feeling defeated, if you notice that you're feeling broken, 100% of the time that's coming from a thought. And it's most often a thought that you have brought forward from the time that you were very, very young. You made meaning of a circumstance. It was maybe direct messaging. Maybe somebody told you something that you then like locked yourself to, and you brought it forward to today. And you don't have to operate from that thinking any longer.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? You know, Tracy, like when I was going through, one of the things that came to light for me was my mom was always on a diet. She's 79 years old. She's still always on a diet. So that's how I felt I always had to be on a diet. And also I was big busted. So all through grade school, junior high, high school, I was teased. And so to me, big busted equaled heavy, fat, the F word, right? That's what I felt. And until I started walking through and going through the mind math and realizing that it's really not, that's not what it is. That's what it doesn't have to be. It's the way I was thinking about it. And the weight was a roadblock for me really doing, I mean, I've been very accomplished and I've had a wonderful, beautiful life, but there were so many other things that I just felt stuck in that I couldn't do, and that I wasn't happy. And I was worried about being in pictures, you know, all those things that we feel. And once I got in here and I started losing weight, one, yes, I felt great and it was building my confidence. But then it didn't matter. It wasn't even about the weight anymore. Now I'm able to do, I mean, we're selling our house. We're going across country in an RV for years. I'd have never been able to do that if I hadn't gotten a handle on my thoughts and feelings around my whole life and the way that I process. So it's been great to really learn that formula.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to clarify, in case you're sitting there thinking, oh, okay, so I've just been thinking the wrong way for a long, long time. I don't really like buy into the right and wrong. You'll hear me talking about it in the context of unwanted and wanted feelings, because thoughts 100% of the time drive the feeling that you're experiencing. And let's say you're experiencing loss or you're experiencing grief. Even though those might be unwanted, nobody wants to feel loss. Nobody wants to necessarily feel grief. But in the moment, if somebody was to pass, you actually would want to feel the grief, because you wouldn't not want to feel it, right? You would want to feel that. That is part of life. And so we teach that life is 50-50. And that's actually what gives you the context of what it is that you're experiencing. If you didn't experience grief, you would never have the context for the opposite, the abundance, right? And so there's nothing wrong with feeling those unwanted feelings. What it comes down to is a choice that you have. 100% of the time, it comes down to the fact that you have a choice. So if you take the quiz and it comes up with the persona that you're the snacker, right? That's the person that constantly has food, in the car with them on every drive, sitting alongside of them while they're working. And that might be because you're constantly having thoughts, maybe I'm always hungry. Or maybe you're having a thought that I have to eat in order to keep my blood sugar up or to keep my energy up, right? That's just a thought that you're having. It might have come from, a very young you, or not. Maybe it's something that you've just recently come up with, but you're actually operating from that thought that's making you feel a desire to eat. And you find yourself eating all of the time. Like you never, ever give your insulin, from a metabolic standpoint, you're never giving your insulin time to level out, so that you are constantly, from a scientific standpoint, you're constantly only burning the fuel that you're actually eating. You're not tapping into the food stores, the fat stores for energy. That's how you're showing up. That's how you're behaving. That's what's creating your results of not being able to lose weight or gaining weight. It's just a formula. The way you're thinking, that thought of I need to eat to keep my energy level up, makes you feel maybe a desire, which then has you eating all the time, which creates your result. It's so simple when you can see it in black and white, when you can see it that way, when you can strip away the drama. So there's nothing wrong with that thought. It's just a choice. Do you want to continue to create that experience for yourself? And when you can see it in black and white, it becomes so clear. The answer is either yes or no, you get to take responsibility for it. Yes, this is the result I've been creating. And no, I don't want to continue to create that for myself. So then that begs the question, how do I change? Well, most people think that you change at the level of action, right? We say on the A line, the action line, because in our formula that we show you, it's your thoughts create your feelings, which has you in action. Okay. So our clients would say it's on the action line, but it's not, because it would be if all we wanted to do was band-aid the problem. But we don't want to do that. We want to help you get to the root cause. And so we reverse architect it to find out what is actually causing this. And it's that thought. It's a very sneaky thought. Sometimes it seems very pretty and very innocent. Like, I need to eat to keep my energy level up.
I need to eat because I got to take meds in the morning, or oh, I've got to have something before I go for my walk. You know, all those, because they're old narrow pathways in our brain. We've heard that over and over and over. And for a snacker, that's why it's easy to go to those kind of diets, like the one that says eat 6 little meals a day or that type of thing, because you're drawn to that. You know, Tracy, I'm just going to point out, so in the framework of self, we've talked about solving the mind math. We've talked about learning, you know, from collecting data, and a little bit about fasting, but we haven't really talked about eating the foods that fuel you. And that was a really, really big wake up call for me when we started identifying the pages and pages and pages of foods that we have that we use to fuel us. And we each get to pick our own. And I love that by being able to pick what you like, you kind of build your own eating protocol plan. And the things about food that fuels you were also not just what's on the list, it's what is not on the list, which is bad oils. I had no idea that oils could be toxic. I was thinking, oh, I'm using canola oil because it's a better choice. Or, you know, I didn't realize that there's really toxic oils that we want to get rid of out of our body. But then in the program, you taught us, well, these are the healthy oils to use, and this is how you use them. So it's so easy, the step-by-step on what to get out of your pantry, what to put in your pantry. 90% of the recipes that I have used in the past, like let's say a family favorite, I could find substitutions for those things that we wanted to eliminate. Yeah. And I might, you know me, I love to cook. Unlike you, who doesn't like to cook, but I love to cook. And so I was like, what am I going to do with all these family favorites? And so I just started tweaking them, and it's been really easy. And now I have all that same stuff in my repertoire, and I don't have any more arthritis pain because I got rid of that white stuff. And it's just, like I said, it's been life-changing physically and mentally and metabolically for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. And a lot of the podcasts that I'm on, seems like lately I've been on a lot of healthcare professional hosted podcasts. So a lot of doctors and nurses, and they always want to talk about, they want to like dive right in. What is it that you eat? What is it that you drink? You know, like, tell us what your day looks like. And I always find that super interesting because I actually don't get that question very often, but lately I have. And it is about the foods that fuel you. And to your point, it means what foods you should be eating and what foods you shouldn't be eating. And it's often very counterintuitive to what people think. So if you think about the food pyramid, you know, the biggest part of the food pyramid that we're supposed to be picking from is grains, and often AKA carbohydrates, right? Breads and grains. And most of the time, the standard American diet, when you think about breads and grains, it's almost always refined. And anything that is refined should be nearly eliminated, in my opinion. So that includes the refined oils. Those are a very poor choice when it comes to fat. They contribute to cravings. They contribute to the joint pain, to the inflammation. So we talk about how the very tippy top of the food pyramid is what you really should be choosing from. But we're talking about the good fats. So there are good and not so good fats that you can choose from. And we teach you all of that. And then that very bottom, the biggest part of the pyramid that we're supposed to be choosing from, that is actually the smallest portion the breads or any sort of grains is actually is part of the food pyramid that you should choose limited amounts from. And that would be more like the quinoas, things like that. You can do brown rice, but we teach you how to collect the data from your blood so that you know how your body actually responds to that carbohydrate. Some people do not have a huge insulin spike or a blood glucose spike, but a lot of people do. And so we teach you how to make a decision based on data from that. But I will say the biggest myth out there, I think, is the food pyramid. Like, we were all taught that at such a young age, and it's a huge myth that the fats, the good fats, is actually where the majority of our diet should be pulled from.
Yeah, and the low fat one, everything was low fat.
Right.
And that was what kicked off the obesity crisis in the United States. I mean,
Right.
There's research all over the place about it, but yet it's still very, very mainstream. So yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard. I know when I went through my cupboard asked my daughter, I hung on to a brand new bottle of canola oil for like 6 months. Finally, she's like, why do you still have this? You're never going to use it. And there was just something in my mind. I had to work on it because it was a brand new unopened bottle of oil, you know? And then why would I give it to a food shelf and contribute to somebody else's poor health, you know? So yeah.
So today, what would you buy instead of that?
Oh, so I would, for sure, I use avocado oil for anything you need to fry because it's got a high smoke point. And then I use olive oil for drizzling, making marinades. Well, as you know, like if I have a sugar craving, like I really want to have something sugary, I'll just take a tablespoon of olive oil and just kind of have a tablespoon of olive oil. Takes care of that craving just like that. Yeah. So now I kind of like it. In the beginning, I was like, oh, but then I just was blown away that I had that oil, no more sugar craving, gone. Yeah.
You heard it here first, right? Like, that is, sometimes that blows our students' minds. And we give a lot of tips like that. But I will say that they're science-based tips. So don't think of them as hacks. Don't think of them as a silver bullet or a quick fix. We give you the science behind it so that you feel really good about taking that measure. This is a whole new way of thinking. We used to call our free program, what did we call it? We called it the Kickstart, and then we called it the Crash Course. We called it the counterintuitive way to eating, because everything was so counterintuitive to what we used to practice. Like, we were like taking action based on old thinking. And so we wanted to debunk that thinking. And there's so many myths out there, but instead of operating from the thought that I've always done it wrong, or I don't know what I should be doing, or that it's too late, we want you to just try on the thought that it's possible that I could learn a new way to think, feel, and eat so that I get to my ideal weight and I stay there. That's it. That is the truth that we want you operating from. And because we so desperately want that for you, we teach the science and the math. We teach evidence-based science so that your brain doesn't even have a chance to argue, because we have the evidence there. And you get to learn about you, uniquely you. Like, we are all, if we were to hand you a script, we would be doing you a disservice, because you would very likely respond in a different way than another student. So we set you up to learn about you and how you mentally, emotionally, physically, and metabolically create your experience. And that is just so liberating and so empowering. So I just want to give you a little bit of insight into what it looks like to be part of the Self-Made Mind and Body program. So currently it is set up as an evergreen program. And that just means that if you were to sign up today, you start on Wednesday. We always start our classes on Wednesdays. So it used to be that we would only start the program as a cohort, and we would start them every 10 weeks. But inevitably, we would have people in between those 10 weeks wanting to start, and we'd have to have them wait. And so we've now set it up to where the lessons are sent to you via our app on a weekly basis, no matter when you start, and you show up to a live call every Wednesday where we do coaching. We can answer any questions for you live, but most of the hour-long session is really dedicated to solving the mind math, which is a good thing because the mind math is what is creating your results. And that is our way of getting to the root cause. We can talk symptoms all darn day, but we want to make sure that we're getting to the root cause, which is solving the mind math. Now, during the week, when you don't have access to us live, you actually still kind of do, because we deliver all of our lessons, the community, through an app that you have the opportunity to ask Rhonda and I questions 24/7. So that's probably one of the coolest, more evolved components of this program, is that we have an app that kind of, makes you feel like you've got us in your back pocket at all times. You're never alone.
You're connected, and you're connected to your community, and there's other people that are in that same community. You can ask questions. Sometimes somebody else is asking a question. You're like, oh yeah, I want to know that too. And so you're learning about things in that way. And also, we make sure that you're successful starting right in the beginning. You're going to get emails starting out to help you swap out your pantry. You're going to get a cookbook. You're going to get all these different things to help you with the food side of it, because we know that that is crucial to losing the weight. I mean, it really is. And you are, I just can't tell you what, how much better you feel. And it's like, I mean, I'm 58 years old, and it took me that long to figure out that I've had arthritis and struggled for probably 10 years so bad in my thumb joints. And just by eliminating those couple of things and then starting really incorporating those healthy fats, oh my gosh, it's gone. I don't have it anymore. And so I would encourage anybody, if they really want to try something that's going to last forever, you're going to love this.
Yeah. And we always joke about, you get Rhonda and I, and then we actually also have a mental health professional. She's a doctor of psychology, also on staff. She does a mental health assessment. So you fill out a 3-part assessment so that you know what your level of anxiety, depression, and stress are, so that you can kind of have that in the back of your mind. And we also reassess that every 2 months. So you can see how, by managing your thoughts and your emotions, you're improving in those areas of mental health. So that's another unbelievable component to this program, because before she came and worked for us, she was booked out over a year at Nystrom and Associates to, just for mental health assessments. So we've got her on staff. That's something else that you get as part of our program, because those are components that often keep you from your ability to lose weight. You have to understand what your level of stress, anxiety, and depression are, because if you are somebody who's suffering from depression, your ability to plan ahead of time is impacted. And we want to know that so we can help you navigate that. So the 3 of us along with some interns, make up Self-Made You. I'm a certified life and weight loss coach. Rhonda is your advisor. And then we have Dr. Jen on staff. And then outside of that, from a delivery standpoint, the app is a hard-working team member. It is the place where you add your data on a daily basis. It holds you accountable. It delivers you the lesson on a weekly basis, actually really on a daily basis during the first 10 weeks. It gives you access to the community, the other people who are going through the program, and then it gives you access to Rhonda and I to get your questions answered. We also have a workbook that goes right alongside of the lessons that you're getting. I would say, self-coaching is the skill set that we really focus on heavily. That helps you solve the mind map. And this workbook basically prompts you to coach yourself, because my goal as your life coach isn't to keep you dependent and locked into using me for the rest of your life. My goal is to teach you how to self-coach. so that you can get into any circumstance, any life stage, and know exactly how to prompt yourself with high quality questions so that you clearly see how you are creating the results that you're experiencing, so that you can create things that you once thought impossible for yourself. And so the workbook is your guide to self-coaching. What else, Rhonda? You mentioned the emails with the cookbook and the meet the team, and what else?
Yeah, we try to think of everything, and we're just here for everybody 100%. If anybody has, there's always somebody you can talk to and get your questions answered, and that's key. And we're your biggest cheerleaders for sure.
Yeah. On a weekly basis, we do the coaching session. That is, you are amongst peers. So you're hearing often the thoughts and feelings that they're having. You're very often seeing how they're showing up, the actions that they're taking. So for example, on any given week, we'll show up to that call and we'll have a client say, you know, I'm just trying to think of last week's call. I think it was somebody went grocery shopping and they bought a package of Oreo cookies. And she said, by the time I got into my car, I had already eaten a full row of them. And she's like, I have been beating myself up for the last week. Now, I wanted her to first and foremost know that she had made such a huge step in the right direction, because she noticed that she noticed the action, she noticed the feeling, and we were able to trace it back to what was the thought that was going on in your mind that made you feel entitled to eat that row of Oreo cookies, because that's all that happened. It was science. Her primitive brain was saying, I've actually worked so hard for the last week, I now deserve it. And that was so subconscious. She couldn't have pinpointed it in the moment, but she did know that she had this feeling of entitlement once she was prompted by us that had her eating that sleeve. And then that spiraled into this self-loathing model, which then had her overeating, feeling like she was eating against her will. And so then she had a week of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That actually, from our perspective, should be celebrated, because now she has the opportunity to clearly see why that was happening. It doesn't mean she's broken. It just means she was reacting to a thought. And that thought was birthed when she was a little girl that said, you've done something so well, now you get food as a reward. And she just carried that through, and that's not a problem, but now she knows. And it doesn't mean that now she knows and it's instantly going to stop either. I want to be really clear about that. That awareness then contributes to more and more learning and understanding so that you can do different. But it takes that awareness first and foremost. And so we're to that place with her, and she's starting to drop the beat down and really kind of step into, I'm becoming the person that understands myself, versus shying away from even wanting to look at herself, to even look at her mind. So that's what those Wednesday calls look like. Even if you're not somebody who raises your hand and wants to be coached in front of everyone, I promise you, you will walk away with breakthroughs. You'll walk away with ahas, because you'll see yourself in those people. And then for those of you who are maybe not comfortable getting coaching in front of other people, you also get 2 one-on-one sessions with me throughout the 10 weeks. So Self-Made Mind and Body is a 10-week program. It's priced at $1,399, $1,399. We have a 2-pay payment option for those of you who want to split that up. But during those 10 weeks, you also get 2 coaching calls with me. And that's your opportunity to work on your private circumstances that you don't feel as comfortable bringing forward in front of a group setting. And did I say two? You get one. You get one.
I just wrote down question mark. Did we change it?
I saw you writing it down. Like, that's not right. You get one call in 10 weeks.
And then I also wanted to remind people that it's also recorded. So we know that, we have to pick a day and a time for when things happen. And so Wednesdays has been our day. And all the calls are recorded, so you can listen to them. Everything's put in your app. You can do it when it works for you. The reason we give you a whole week when we drop your lesson, so you listen to your lesson, you've got a week to, if you want to go back and listen to it again, you get a homework demo to kind of guide you through the homework. So there's a lot of hand holding to make sure that everything is going the way that you need it to go, as well as the community chat in the app where you can ask questions in there, but you can also message Tracy and I individually. So yeah, I think we've covered almost everything.
Yeah. Any questions? If there's any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Rhonda, can you put your calendar, if you haven't already done that, your Calendly link? So Rhonda, being your advisor, she is your first line of defense. She is the person that will answer all of your questions. She's of course been through the program, so she kind of knows what you're thinking and feeling. Often she can like throw that out there before you've even come up with it. But yeah, she's your first line of defense. We also have masters. So these are people who have been through the program. A lot of them have been with us for over 2 years. And as a master, you're in kind of a membership program where we focus on a particular topic every single month. And it's the same exact model where they get a lesson delivered via their app, and then they show up for a live coaching call. And a lot of these people, because they have now mastered their thoughts and their feelings around food, they've moved on to more professional type topics, or maybe other personal type topics. So relationships with other people, income, things like that. And so again, I feel very comfortable coaching them on those topics because it all comes down to solving the mind math. So it's the exact same formula. And I believe that gives these people an opportunity to really take their learning to a different level. So they would consider themselves masters when it comes to food or their weight, but yet they question their ability to master things like professional growth. And when we can show them, actually, it's the exact same formula, but I can give them specifics, and we have more time. Like the intensive, the self-made mind and body is intense. It's 10 weeks focused on getting you to your ideal weight, giving you the skills to get to your ideal weight. Once we're out of that and we're in mastery, it opens up the time and opportunity to focus on all the other circumstances of your life. So we retain a very high number of people who go through self-made mind and body because they see such great results. And I'll just say, I don't take credit for that. Our students are doing the work. They're really doing the work. And they've just been taught that there is a new way of creating the results that they want for themselves. And it's not through the reactive thinking that they've always used. It's through a more responsible way of thinking. They strengthen their ability to respond versus reacting to those primitive brain thoughts. Anything else?
Great. Nope, there's no questions in the chat.
All right.
We'll make sure that we include all of the links when we post this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. It was so good to see all of you. We hope that you will take us up on the offer, join Self-Made Mind and Body. Like I said, we start new classes every single Wednesday. So as soon as this Wednesday, you could be getting lesson 1 and starting off with a really neat group of women who we are launching this Wednesday. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Bye-bye.